Thanks, everyone. All right, so we're going to get right into the questions because there's a lot to unpack today and some very delicate subjects. So we're going to start with Greg. And Greg, I'm so grateful to have you here today, not only as a panelist, but like he said, as a very long-term friend. And most of us can only imagine what you have gone through in this past year. Can you start by sharing a look at the life that you and Lynne had built together prior to her diagnosis? And then how did your life change with Lynne's cancer and then her many years of treatment?
So thanks, Laura, for having me. And as I mentioned earlier, this is very relevant because on Friday will be the one-year anniversary of Lynne's passing. Lynne and I went to high school together. We were primarily classmates and acquaintances, and then our senior year, we started hanging out at parties and went on a couple of dates and a dance. And then we both went to Michigan State, and I called her up shortly after we got on campus and had a date, and the rest was history. We were together ever since, so 45 years. We got married right after college, so we were 22, and look at pictures now, it looks like we were just kids, and which we were. Spent the first 6-7 years of our marriage working on our careers and having fun as a young married couple, and then at that time we were ready to start a family, so Lynne got pregnant immediately, and we had our son Michael in 1990. He's 32 now, and a couple years later we had our daughter Emily. And so we had a great life. We both have a very close family. She comes from a huge Polish family, and very close to all of her cousins and aunt and uncles. My extended family lives out of state, but I've got 3 brothers and my mom and dad, and we're all very close. So we got a great group of friends, and we've had a wonderful life. Our careers were going great, raising our kids, and things were going along great. And then at 57, she got diagnosed with breast cancer. And it was a gut check, you know? So all those things, many of you have been married a long time, you go through all those challenges, and you get through those, and you successfully navigate all the difficulties you have in a long-term relationship, and you raise your family, and your love grows strong and deep, and then you realize the time is short. So after the diagnosis, we just focused on making memories. A lot of things with the family, a lot of things with the 2 of us, going around to see things that Lynne loved to do. And we had almost 5 years of that, which we were very blessed because her prognosis wasn't that good. And we made the best of it. Yeah, it was good. Then, as her disease progressed and her physical abilities got worse, our relationship changed a little bit. It changed really to more of a caregiver-patient relationship. And we navigated that change very well. I felt lucky that I was able to provide that to her. Our situation, my situation with work and our life allowed me to do that. I had a lot of flexibility at work and a very understanding employer. So, but an interesting dynamic that some of you may have gone through already, but certainly was different for us after so many years. Mm-hmm.
So for most of us, the natural reaction to the initial cancer diagnosis might be to explore every treatment and really fight in every way possible. Now, initially when she was diagnosed, is that what this looked like with you and Lynne, where you were making all of her treatment? Did you guys make those treatment decisions together? Did you really try and fight for a period of time before you felt it was really inevitable that she would pass?
We were very lucky. Many of you are familiar with Art Van Furniture, and the Van Elslander family spent tens of millions of dollars building a cancer center, literally within walking distance of our house. And one of the oncologists in that practiced there, that facility, was a certified or a specialist in breast cancer. So we felt right from the start that she was getting really excellent care. And they took a team approach, so the radiologists, the neurologists, even her palliative doctor, were all within the same group. So we did explore some second opinions, but we felt very comfortable, both of us did, with the team that was treating her. So we didn't travel across the country or anything. That's a very personal decision, and that's not right for everybody. So I think it depends on the situation. But for us, in particular, Lynne, it worked out great. As far as decisions on treatment, I really left that to her. I mean, we talked about them, and she asked my opinion. But ultimately, it's her body. It's her struggle. It should be her decision. So she really was ultimately, now she ended up right through, like I say, it was almost 5 years. She took every advantage of every treatment. Very difficult, a lot of pain and suffering goes along with that, but she wanted to extend her life as much as possible. So she did that. And the thing with cancer, as many of you know, and certainly medical professionals, is when you start down that journey, your body can handle a lot of aggressive treatment, and every treatment has the likelihood of prolonging for months or years. So those are easy decisions. But then as you get further along in the journey, your body is suffering, and the treatment doesn't provide a lot of extended life, then the decision becomes more difficult. And but she kept fighting along, and up until a very serious complication, which ultimately cost her death. And the treatment was only going to provide for maybe a couple of weeks of additional life, with the likelihood that the last month or so would be terrible. So at that point, she decided to stop.
Yeah, I can't imagine the challenges in making those decisions. And at the point where you really knew that Lynne's time was limited, how did you guys then really focus on making those memories as both a couple and as a family?
So that was, for us, for her, it was kind of an ongoing thing. When shortly after she got the first diagnosis, the prognosis wasn't very good, so it could have been that she only was going to be around for another year or two. So we faced that decision early on, and then she went through some treatments and had some great success. In fact, there were times when she had no detectable cancer and thought, hey, maybe she'd beat the odds. But ultimately, months later or whatever, she would have a setback, and it would be back to aggressive treatment and decisions and everything. So we didn't wait until the very end to really kind of pack a lot in. We started in 2017. Took a lot of trips, spent a lot of time with family. Lynne's therapy, her calming thing was water, which is mine too. So about once a month, we would take a long weekend, and we'd go waterfalls or a lake or a river or whatever, and just spent a lot of good time together. Made a lot of great memories in 4.5 years, a lot of great memories that me and my family will keep with us. So, yeah. We also tried to kind of have a normal life. You don't want the disease to be the focus of everything, so we tried to do normal things. We tried to, spend time with family, of course, and do routine things, go shopping or whatever that is. And it's a bit of a balancing act, and as I mentioned earlier, it's a personal journey for the person going through it and their spouse and their family, and every situation is different. And for us, we just decided what was most important to us, and that's what we focused on.
Thank you. When you started to, determine that you would be going through a celebration of life. How much of that was Lynne able to contribute to the planning of while she was still alive? And were you and the kids, how did you support her through something as challenging as basically planning your funeral when you're this young?
You can imagine how difficult that must be to plan your own funeral. And having a prolonged illness where the end is going to come is a blessing and a curse. And it is a blessing in the sense that she could plan everything, and she did. She planned everything. She planned the mass, the songs, the prayers, the location. She planned the luncheon afterwards, the menu, and everything. That was her style. She liked to be in charge. So yeah, and of course, she talked with me about it and talked with our kids and her mom, very close to her mother. Much of that planning was done several weeks before she passed. She had, as I mentioned earlier, she had this complication. We knew it was just weeks, and we were able to take a family vacation, and she sat us all down. Went through all that, made sure we knew what we were going to do. So I think that's great. It gave her some comfort, She had priests come in from the church and sit with her, and we sat as family. I think ultimately that gave her quite a bit of comfort to do that, and it's something I haven't done for myself, but it's something that I really plan on doing. I guess I'm no different than anybody else. You put it off and you put it off and you put it off, but hey, I could be hit by a bus tomorrow, and a beer truck, Lynne, you would say. So yeah, she, and during that time, as difficult as it is, we laughed a little bit. We cried a lot, obviously, but it was good. It was very good. Easy. She did it too to kind of lighten the load for me and the family, and that was really nice because we didn't have to guess what she wanted. She knew what she wanted, and after she passed, it's just a whirlwind. You don't even know what end is up, and so to have that planning already done is a huge help for the surviving spouse. Huge help.
Yeah, so my husband is in the audience today, so just FYI, Mark, martinis and hot fudge sundaes if I pass tomorrow, okay? All right, we've got that part done. So looking back, is there anything that you wish you could have done differently to support Lynne, support your kids, or even support yourself?
Well, after she passed, I second-guessed everything. I've come to learn that that's fairly common and natural. And then as time goes on, you realize you did the best you can. And I really, truly believe I did the very best I could. Some people say it was over and above, but I do feel I did. I took care of her. She passed away in the house after I took care of almost all of her medical needs because she wanted me to do that, not have anybody else do that. So it worked out great for us, and we've got, again, a loving and close family, so there was a lot of support. We've got a great friend network. They were also a great support. So no regrets. Now, a year later, I can say it really went as well as it could possibly get. I went through a lot of anticipatory grief. I don't know if anybody knows that term. I didn't know it at the time, but when you're going to lose somebody close and you know that's inevitable, you go through this pre-grieving. And that was very helpful for me. I kept it private. I wanted to be strong for Lynne, so I didn't show that to her. I did a lot of crying in my office and in my car, and I had a couple of close family members that I was able to lean on when I needed to. That anticipatory grieving helped me a lot. So when she finally passed, it's completely different. You still have to go through the grieving process. And again, it is different than before she passed, but it kind of gave me a jump start, you know, and helped me rebound much quicker than others that I know that have gone through something similar.
I've thought about this over other times in my life, and I feel like you can get to a point where you are sort of all cried out, for lack of a better term.
Well, you think you are, and then and then days or weeks or months later, you're not. This is a good example, you know. Mm-hmm. I've been super happy with my life right now, and I've got a lot of joy in my life, and then, you know, revisit things. So I don't think that'll ever go away. I know it won't. I still love her. But it gets easier, you're right. Yeah, and those stretches get further and further apart, thankfully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Greg, that kind of leads us right into our last question, which is really, I know that you've made a lot of changes in the last year, and can you take us through what the last year has looked like, what some of those changes have been, and how, you know, the things that you've done have helped you move on while still honoring Lynne's memory and your family?
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind. Actually, it feels like in some ways yesterday, and in some ways it feels like a lifetime ago. They say the most stressful times in a person's life are the death of a spouse, moving, and a job change. And I've gone through all three of those this last year. Losing Lynne, you know, for me, I'm adjusting to living alone. I never lived alone my whole life. I was under my parents' roof, and then I was in college with roommates. And then Lynne and I got married immediately after that, so I literally have never lived by myself. Never cooked for one, never decided what I'm gonna do in an evening and all those things. So huge adjustment for that. It's getting better, but the first few months were horrible. But getting better. Sometimes I enjoy having my evening to myself and watching what I want and eating soup out of a can and, you know, eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or whatever. So I'm getting used to that. It's also, you know, Lynne and I had all these plans. We spent a lifetime together, and we had planned what our golden years were going to be, and suddenly those were gone. So I'm faced at 62 years old, reinventing myself and resetting my life, figuring out. I think the nearest thing I can compare it to is when we are young adults and we're getting way to go to college or establish our own home, how stressful a time. We all remember that period of time when we're suddenly going to be on our own. And, you know, there's that huge life adjustment from being with your parents. Well, it's a very similar feeling to that. That I got to figure out what my chapter 2 is. That's what everybody, you know, terms it, the chapter 2. So that's been the hardest thing about not having her with me. As far as the house goes, it was a house we raised our kids in. I didn't need that big of a house by myself. It was the house that Lynne was sick in and that she died in, and I couldn't sit in that room and be happy. So for me, I had to make a move. Now, I stay in touch with some widowers, and they get great comfort sitting in there with all their wife's belongings. So it's a very personal choice. For me, it just brought sadness. So now that I've been away from the house I moved about 6 months ago, I can remember the happy memories in the house instead of the sad ones. So for me, again, it works. And I needed a fresh start anyway. So that was part of the house move. And then the job, I'm still with the same company, almost 30 years. I work with Laura's husband, Mark. And prior to Lynne's passing, they asked me to go in a little different direction. And we delayed that until I got back into work, because I basically took 3 or 4 months where I didn't work very much. And that's been great too, because even, you know, it's the same company, and they've been just, you know, unbelievably supportive, but it's a fresh look and a new challenge for me, and I need that. So It's been very good. I miss seeing all the guys that I work with day in and day out, but I still see them regularly. And so anyway, that's been all the changes in my life. Throughout it all, Lynn has really been my guiding light. I mean, we were together. She taught me so much about life and about myself. So I still get a lot of inspiration from her, a lot. So that's my story. I still love her. I'll never stop loving her, but she wants me to be happy. She wanted me to move on. So that's what I'm doing.
Awesome. Greg, thank you so much.
you.
Can you guys give him a round of applause? That took a lot of guts to be willing to share this, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it.